I'm using my wallet as a stabilizer.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm the stand-in, so I can put your camera.
You guys, this is not to be recorded, so please turn your mics off and all that.
Oh,
okay.
Mandy.
I
was like, okay, if it's like right. I was like, okay, I got
I'm good. Anything, I'll show.
Why you're a professional? Hi, how are you doing?
It should be free though. It should be free. Access free.
This one, the open networks.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, yeah, it's open network, yeah. Okay, good, thanks.
Targets and events.
evidently. Jerry rigging here. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah, just let me know. So. I need something over here.
Yeah, you can come on over, Eddie.
Like literally right between Nick and I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So maybe if you can let them know, we're lucky to tell them.
Yes.
Why do you think?
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Guys.
Apologies.
We tried.
No worries. Thank you guys for accommodating.
Yeah, no problem, guys.
I just ran up from the floor, so
I bet your arms are tight.
oh my
I mean, that's a
gosh.
flying coat.
And then, make it to the
Coin or a city plaza.
Robert's camera.
Set of keys. Okay.
I just happened to.
Oh, real quick, just so I know.
Awesome. Awesome.
Headphones is not right.
So let's.
Robert, Legal said she could clap in front if you want to sing right before we get started.
No worries. I got you. I've got a. I'll be able to sync it in post pretty easily.
Okay, it's up to you.
Yeah, no worries, buddy.
These are the two mics that both on. And I can tell they look different. I don't know if that's what
This
one y'all want to handle it.
2875. It's a pretty good flexible setup.
So, I mean, that one's probably the most comfortable, like the whole one.
Hey, Leva.
It's like a transformer.
Oh, one man band.
Man, nice to meet you.
Look at that.
I
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so
Any
much.
flop or anything, or we good? Yeah. It's all you need. Oh yeah, I know. I'm so sorry. I was stuck in a situation where I was like, yeah, and I didn't want to be rude to anybody, and I was like, trying to keep people attention, but yeah, you know.
You just see it coming.
See, it's nice action. It should be fun too.
I guess they might. I definitely watched the one. So stretched. But yeah, whoever you hand one.
Oh, you know, answer everybody's questions. Like, everybody's, yeah. Unfortunately, right? I'm so sorry about that. Like, that's the one thing where I was like, thank God I live here because I don't have to worry about that. But I still feel bad for, like, you know, everybody else who does have to worry about that and stuff. But what can you do? Like, what can you do?
So Joel, you come in from Puerto Rico?
Yes.
How long is that?
Actually, I flew this morning to Newark, then here.
That's gotta be 10 hours.
Actually, 3.5 to Newark,
right?
and then Newark here 2.5.
But then was there
like 6?
Holdover or anything?
Yeah, like 1 hour.
7, and then you gotta check in and
Yes,
like get to the
exactly.
airport. That's a 10-12 hour trip right there. That's exhausting. When do you leave tomorrow?
Tomorrow at 3 p.m.
Okay, so you get some time to at least
I
rest.
have to work. So.
Yeah, I'm leaving at 6 a.m.
Oh, wow.
I drive at 6.
Yeah. Well, you're in Chicago, so it's like
45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I'll be in my bed by 9.
I hate you, Nick. I hate you. 45 minutes.
Eddie Guerrero
My
celebration.
short one was, this one was my shortest trip that I've had to take, and it was 4 hours.
Where do you live?
In Los Angeles.
Oh, that's right. You're LA based.
So how much is from Los Angeles here?
That's a little under 4 hours, yeah.
Okay.
But like everything's always, you know, on this side of the country, and I always have to be going places. I hate it.
Are you gonna go check out GCW LA fights? Or
Yeah, I'm bringing Elsie for that day.
are you?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm stoked about that fit. That's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna, they're captivating on an audience that has not been captivated in Los Angeles.
Well-
It's like huge, the people want events, and there
Yeah.
aren't many events going down there. So GCW right now is kind of like owning that town.
Well, good. I told Brett, I was like, dude, because they did the Jersey Fed, now they got the LA Fed. I was like, dude, bring one to Chicago, man. Like, come on, give me my GCW Chicago
Yeah.
Fed, you know?
There was an opening, and he grabbed it there. Like, he grabbed it. It's
I
crazy.
mean, it's crazy. It's wild.
There was two shows running the same night, Bloodsport and PCW Ultra, both completely sold out.
Oh, sure.
Like there's rooms to do like a bunch of events in one night there and have a bunch of events out loud.
Yeah. Well, Brett's smart. I mean, in 5 years, GCW is gonna probably have a TV show. I think. Like,
Yeah.
They're-
This is who knows? Like I feel like they might get in that spot where they're like too big to be small, too small to be big, you know, that sort of thing. So hopefully they find like a cool balance.
what I like about Brett is he doesn't say no to ideas. You know, and
Oh, he's very open in terms of like the talent that he brings in and whatnot, you know?
because I told him, I go, Brett, I love your model. Like, you're creating these little feds, but you're also picking the best of them to create a touring company. And he's like, is that our model? I've never really. He's like, I've never really thought about it. He's like,
See him
"What?"
saying that.
He's like, when I'm on the inside, we're just doing stuff. He's like, I guess when you're on the outside looking in, he's like, yeah, I guess that's what we're
Yeah.
doing. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
He's so funny. Yeah. He's great.
yeah, I love those guys. I don't
Really
have-
good team too. Like everybody there's super nice.
Yeah, I'm happy for Polio too.
For who?
Polio Del Mar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Paul, whatever you want to call her. It's just nice to see that kind of representation. Like, it's not just like lip service. Like, there's a real, like, we want to embrace this and engage in kind of attitude.
Strong
Oh, well,
dedicated.
it was crazy because I took.
The new #1 contender to the world title. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hi, Brian. Congratulations on winning the tournament. So you made a statement at All Out, and you made a statement tonight that you're here and you're here to stay. Do you think that winning the tournament tonight is your one shot to championship gold?
I mean, I definitely get an opportunity now at championship gold. I intend to be AEW champion. That's why I'm here. I didn't come here to, like I said before, I'm not here to help the young guys. I'm not here to do anything else but prove I'm the best. So that's what I plan on doing.
Hey, Brian, Punk brought up your name when he was addressing Eddie in that infamous back and forth as somebody that also looked down on Eddie. How did you feel about him using your name when talking about Eddie like that?
Well, it was interesting because, you know, Eddie and I had actually had interviews where I pretty much said the same thing. You know, I think one of the things, I want to say this. Eddie's a very inspirational person, very inspirational human being. But when I look at Eddie and CM Punk looks at Eddie, and you can see it tonight, right? You look at him. He's freaking awesome, right? What would happen if he put in that extra effort, right? Like, so, you know what I mean? Like, he works his ass off when he's out there. But one of the things right before we had our first match, so it was, I think we were in Miami, and so it was the week before. After Miami, he goes out till 3 in the morning. After the show, I'm back in my hotel room, foam rolling, stretching, getting ready so that my body's physically prepared for the next week. Eddie's shoulder right now is really banged up, right? I've been wrestling for 22 years. I feel invincible, right? Like, and I've been wrestling every single week since I started here.
Sure.
So there's putting in the work when you're wrestling, and then there's putting in the work when you're not wrestling, and I think that's the difference. But this is what I want to say about Eddie. One, he's got an incredible heart. Two, he's such a great wrestler. I don't know what you guys thought about that CM Punk Eddie Kingston match.
That's great.
But it's unbelievable. And sometimes I get jealous because I'm not that naturally talented. And I see him and I'm like, oh God, if I had that, you know. So I think that's where the disappointment comes in. But then this is one of the things that Tony wouldn't let air. Then I said about Eddie is I said, fatigue makes cowards of us all. It's in every amateur wrestling locker room all across the country. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. I work my ass off so I never get tired. Eddie's the one guy I know who gets tired and doesn't stop. And that just, I think, speaks to his heart.
Fair.
Brian, we've seen you change up your arsenal quite a bit since you started this run here in AEW. We've seen you win matches in different ways each time. Today, it's motivation against Miro. How important is that for you when telling these stories to have that element of surprise that anything at any moment can result in a win?
Well, I mean, realistically, the idea of like a finishing move is a relatively recent phenomenon in the history of pro wrestling. Like Lou Thez would have regular things that he was good at that he would beat people with, but he had a variety of things that he would beat people with. And that was just a regular thing. You look at Dory Funk, you look at all the previous champions, all that kind of stuff. And so to me, it's not unusual. To me, that's wrestling, right? Like when you watch MMA, like sometimes guys mostly win with their right hand, but sometimes they win with other stuff. You know what I mean? So it's so that's the approach I like to take.
Brian, what was running through your match when you were in that ring with Minoru Suzuki?
Don't die. No, honestly, when I'm wrestling, it's weird. It's kind of like an out-of-body experience a little bit, and the sensation of it. I love the physicality. I love somebody like Minoru Suzuki, who just, you feel like you're in a fight, and it really just makes you feel alive. And so like I try not to think. It's almost a meditative experience, where it's like you're just feeling everything, and it's what it. And then afterwards, I go back, and like there's this joy that you can't. Nothing else in life feels the same way. I would say like being around my kids is a different type of better joy. Like if I had to choose one or the other, but it's a completely unique joy that's unlike anything else.
Hey, Tony, question about Brian. So you booked Brian to win the tournament, setting him up as #1 contender. Are you worried? Can you explain the thinking behind that? And are you worried it's going to undercut your new babyface champion, given that Brian is so over and popular with the fans?
I don't think so. I think the fans are conditioned, whether it was like CM Punk and Darby, or CM Punk and Eddie Kingston, or Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston. The fans right now are conditioned to great wrestling matches. So Hangman Page versus Bryan Danielson, I think, is one of the best wrestling matches I could possibly give the fans. And especially because Bryan Danielson wrestled the prior champion to a 30-minute draw. I think there's nobody with a better resume. He's been in the company for just over 2 months, but in the time he's been here, nobody has out-wrestled him. And furthermore, nobody has wrestled more than he has. He's taken on everybody and then some. So I think it's the logical challenger based on all the wrestling we've seen from Bryan Danielson since he came in, and now with Hangman Page as a world champion. You want to have the best #1 contender possible. So I think Hangman Page versus Bryan Danielson is a dream match.
Do you have a date for that match?
I'm not going to announce it yet, but I think it's going to be a huge match coming up in the near future. Fans should be really excited about Danielson versus Page for the world title.
Brian, speaking of that match, do you recall your first impressions of Hangman Page when you first saw him? Or was it something where you saw the specialness in him at the beginning, or was it something that came along later?
So it's weird. I don't know. It's hard to like uniquely identify somebody as being like, this is an extra special talent, right? And especially when you're looking at AEW when they have so many. So when you say like, okay, who stands out more, Hangman Page or Darby Allin or MJF? I thought MJF and Darby Allin's match, I was watching it. Those two guys are, God, both under 25, right? And they're opening a pay-per-view with just fantastic. Right? So when you look at these guys and you say, oh, who's the standout guy? It's hard to choose until somebody grabs the ball and runs with it. And then all of a sudden you're watching and Hangman Page is just like, crowd's going nuts for him. And he's starting to catch that. There's something about you, there's something that changes in your mind, like of a performer. When you go from being like, okay, I'm here, and then when you take that next step. And you could see in his performances and in his attitude, the way he carried himself, he took that next step. You could see he was going to be a star. Now, being the champion and carrying the company, that's a completely different ballgame, and we'll see how he does with that. I don't think he's going to be champion for very long, to be honest. And so I know I can be the champion and carry the company. So,
Brian, speaking about the match tonight against Miro, do you think you felt more comfortable doing this match here in AEW instead of maybe doing that match of a few years ago in WWE?
So I will say this. I feel like the best version of myself here in AEW. And I feel like I'm doing some of the best wrestling of my career. Like, I feel like I'm at the peak of my career. And I also feel like I'm able to do stuff that I wasn't able to do before.
Brian, Hangman had some of his best matches in the G1 Climax a couple of years ago. Is that a goal of yours since you want to go around and wrestle the best?
So I've talked to Tony about potentially doing a G1 and all that kind of stuff, but my number one priority is AEW, and until the quarantine stuff gets better with COVID and all that kind of stuff, I mean, it doesn't even make sense for me to go to Japan, under the current circumstances. And we all cross our fingers hoping that we can go and quick turnaround time and all that kind of stuff, but until that actually changes, I don't even think about it.
Brian, Tomohiro Ishii has been announced for Dynamite. Is on your bucket list? Is someone would like to?
Oh, I'm pissed. I'm pissed at Tony. I could be wrestling tomorrow. I could be wrestling Ishii on Wednesday, but no.
Brian, you mentioned the adjustments you had to make in the ring and how at your previous employer you were able to split walk through matches. Are there things you're finding that you weren't able to do there that maybe you're having trouble adjusting to, or is it like riding a bike?
So I don't know. When you say having trouble adjusting, like I feel such a sense of joy when I'm wrestling. But when I say that, I've kind of felt that since I came back from retirement, right? So even within the limitations, and there's always limitations when it comes to wrestling on TV. You have certain times, all that kind of stuff. Like, you're never going to be able to go out there and do whatever you want. It just doesn't work like that, right? But I feel like there's a certain amount of joy in just being able to do this thing that I love, and then there's an extra amount of joy given the freedom that we have here at AEW to do kind of what I want within what are always going to be limitations.
Brian, do you think the fans at AEW respond differently to what you do in the ring, and you do things differently as a result compared to the fans of your previous?
So I will say this: what I do think happens is that wrestling is important here, and what happens in the matches is important here. So people are taught to pay attention. One of the negatives sometimes is that when the wrestling isn't the focus, other things become the attention. So then you pay less attention to the wrestling. But I mean, I think AEW's done a fantastic job of the stories being about wrestling. And I think that makes the fans zero in on what's happening in the matches.
Brian, first I want to thank you for what you said earlier this week about companies that show massive profits and lay people off. I think that's a huge problem, and I'm glad you put a spotlight on it. My second question is about the match you had with Kenny Omega. Do you feel that you have unfinished business? Because it was a classic. It went to a no-limit draw. It went to a draw. Are we going to get another classic?
So I hope I have a million classics. On one sense, another side of my brain is like, I hope I beat everybody in 2 minutes. I don't have to take another fall the rest of my career. But I think I was, to be honest, as I was watching, a little disappointed. I know it's great for the fans that Hangman was the champion, but I mean, there was a part of me that wanted to be the one to take the championship from Kenny Omega. And not only wasn't I able to do that, I wasn't able to beat him. You know what I mean? And Hangman was. So that, like, listen, I don't have a lot of jealousy in me, but there's a part of me that, like, okay, Hangman, let's see what you really got.
Last question for Brian or Tony.
Yeah, I'm out here, so please, yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Under your past head trauma issues, are you still doing impact testing? Do you like past that? What are you doing?
So I don't do the impact testing anymore. To be honest, I haven't done an impact test in years and years, but I do regularly keep up with a neurologist where I see pretty much every month. And there's these new tests called SPECT scans, which monitor the oxygen flow in your brain and all that kind of stuff. And because I keep working on it and keep doing different things, my SPECT scans keep getting better and better, to where they're better than your average. I think he said last time it was better than your average 25-year-old with no head trauma. And so I think modern science, and and we're gonna see like how valid these SPECT scans are and how valid some of the other stuff is. But I try to be very diligent, because one of the things it's most important to me is being a dad. And and I've seen the best doctors in the country, and all of them have cleared. Right? So it's not like I'm going to see these fringe doctors who are just like, oh yeah, you're good to go, buddy, or whatever it is. No, and like even Dr. Joseph Maroon, who I have a lot of respect for, he was the most hesitant, and we had to go through all the due diligence to even get cleared for WWE, because if you don't, that's a huge lawsuit. But my main goal is not to be the best wrestler. It's to be able, like, I'm a relatively old father. My son just turned 1.5 years. When he turns 15, I'm going to be 54, 55. He's going to want to take me down the way that I did when I was 15 with my dad, right? And I'm going to sprawl on him, and I'm going to crush his shoulder. And so I want to be, when my daughter asks me about chemistry and how does H2O bond with CO2, I want to be able to say it's H2CO3, right? And like all that kind of stuff. I want to be able to do all that and explain to her chemistry and algebra and calculus and whatever it is that she wants to do. So my goal, that is my number one goal, is to do that. And if I think, or Tony thinks at any point that I'm getting to a point where I won't be able to do that, it's going to be time to stop.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to be joined momentarily by the best in the world, CM Punk. I'll stay over here. Take the center stage. That's yours.
Hola. Hello.
Hey, it's you.
It's me. It's on the corner.
Just for recording.
Okay, fine.
Mike, congratulations on your huge win tonight. Now, throughout the build-up of this match, you talked about getting redemption. Do you feel like that you got the redemption that you needed personally after tonight's win against Eddie Kingston?
Was it me or him who wanted redemption? I don't even remember at this point. It's just amazing to me that the whole thing stems from somebody interrupting me while I'm trying to do an interview. Hopefully nobody does that tonight. I'm high as a kite right now, and I don't do drugs, so it's strictly from the match and that audience and what we do here. So yeah, redemption? No, but I'm sure they had a whole lot of fun.
After the match, Punk, you motioned like you were going for the belt. Is that your next goal or achievement?
Scrap season, baby.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? All right, I don't know either.
You did it.
Punk, tell us about that promo with Eddie Kingston a few weeks ago in Rampage. I mean, we know all about you in the promos, the pipe bombs, but what Eddie Kingston did with you was great. Tell us about that.
Again, pro wrestling, man. I think when you get people who are, it's kind of ironic, right? Because we're characters, but we're not. We're real people. You know what I mean? What you see is what you get with me. What you see is what you get with Eddie. And I hate peeling the curtain back, so to speak, but I used to watch professional wrestling all the time. And, two dudes can get into an argument. And then they can fight about it. And, it doesn't really have to be deeper than that. And if you can get people to relate to that stuff, you can get people to relate to, oh man, I was at a job one time and maybe I didn't apply myself 100%. There's that guy in the office that always called me out on it. Screw that guy. And, vice versa. Everybody can take a side when you put me and Eddie in the ring. And I don't care what side you take, It's just, you're going to take a side. There's going to be some situation in your life, your past, your experiences that as you watch that on television, you're engaged. And that's, that was the whole point, Jerry Lawler used to do it all the damn time, Nobody's done it since. So we're doing it. It's always been.
Punk, the last time that we were here, we were all talking about, you coming into the company and all of that. So now, you've been here for a while. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on how the experience has been in terms of, have you been surprised or anything, any sort of unexpected stuff? How have you been enjoying it?
And I don't know if anything was a big surprise, except just maybe just how consistent we are, I have opinions just like the fans do. Not everybody's going to love me or what I do. I don't necessarily have to, like everything on the TV show, but that's the whole point is we're not giving you one thing for 2 hours or 3 hours. We're giving you a variety of different things. And I think everybody who loves pro wrestling can find something that they love about the show, to me, that's the most, I don't even think it's really surprising, it's just, it's a breath of fresh air, it's different, and it's rad, and it's one of the reasons I was drawn to this place, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to be here, it's one of the reasons I'm here.
Do you think the fan base from WWE followed you here and left that brand, or do you feel this is a different type of fan than you've ever performed in front of before?
I definitely think there's overlap, right? I don't know if everybody who was a WWE fan came over here specifically just to watch me. But what I recognize in front of an AEW audience is an audience that I used to wrestle in front of prior to going to the WWF. It's the wrestling fans, you know, and I will never understand the criticism of appealing to your fan base. If this is our fan base, we give them what they want, everybody's happy. Now I understand building a business, and people talk about trying to get casual here. I don't think there's casual wrestling fans anymore. My opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody in TNT is going to get mad that I'm saying this, or I am of this opinion. But, you know, our fans are wrestling fans, and, you know, we give them wrestling. Man, what a novel concept.
Punk, I read a tweet earlier today that said if anyone can bring the IWA Mid-South out of CM Punk, it would be Eddie Kingston. And we saw a little bit of a different element than what we've seen from you in AEW. What does he bring out of you, and how did you channel that intensity?
Well, I hope it's not too much like I'm getting paid, right?
This is a lot more people here than I know.
I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure I'm not going to wind up being owed any money.
He's compensated.
No, man, Eddie is just real and he's raw. You know, like he's a throwback. He's legit. He's a throwback. He's a guy that you can take and you can put him in the ring in the 70s in various territories. And like I said earlier, he's what you see is what you get. This is Eddie Kingston. The dude's not an astronaut. The dude doesn't bring a condor to the ring and try to pretend like he's, you know, like Birdman. You know what I mean? Like it's just real people put in real situations, and you know we build from there.
This is the first time we've seen the crowd turn on you a little bit during a match. There was the tease of a 5-knuckle shuffle spot, and then there's you running your knee into his head repeatedly. Like you had to know that was coming, considering the opponent you're facing, because he's a beloved fellow as well.
I have one boss when I'm in the ring, right? And I often like to say I have no boss when I'm in the ring, but the truth is the people. And I listen to them, and you know, sometimes I go with the flow and I let them take me places, and sometimes, you know, regardless of the 7-year gap, I've been doing this for a minute. I know what I'm doing, you know. And to me, it's fun just to fuck with people. You know, that's the whole juice for me, right? Is it's getting reactions, getting different reactions, and kind of getting to play with that. And you know, 16 years ago today, we lost Eddie Guerrero, and I just thought, man, I'm wrestling a dude tonight named Eddie. Like, how great is this going to be when I get them chanting for Eddie? In my head, I'm just going to be thinking about Eddie Guerrero, you know, like. So I get to play with emotions and stuff like that because I feel it too, you know. And when they're chanting for Eddie, I'll go ahead and give them 3 amigos. You know what I mean? This is not what you want. Are you not entertained? It's just, I never really expect to get booed or get cheered. I have a pretty good idea, and I think what I'm really, really excellent at is reading the room. Again, pulling back the curtain. It's one of the reasons why after, you know, a Friday ago when me and Eddie did the promo in the ring, I didn't want people to see me or him until tonight. Because I figured Hay was in the bar and we'd set the stage. I didn't want to go and influence them either way any more than we already did. And let's just let the chips lie where they are. And Saturday we'll go out there and we'll see what's what. And that's what I did. You know, hopefully everybody enjoyed it. They like me taking for a ride.
Well, did you speak with Eddie Guerrero before Palms?
I mean,
thanks, Mom. You've wrestled with such a variety of opponents since you've got here, and with Eddie, this was like your first kind of real like feud with anger in it. So I'm wondering, like, how far ahead have you looked at who you want to go with next, and kind of dream matches, and Tony, your input as well, like how much you plan for someone like Punk?
I look pretty far ahead, but that's just me being greedy. Like, I want to wrestle you and you and you. I know we're going to get to it all eventually. Sometimes I want to step my foot on the gas and go full bore, but you know, it's pretty calculated. You know, I wrestled Darby. Everybody had a different style. You know, so yeah, I'm coming back and I'm proving that like I'm still that dude. You know, like I can still do it all. And today, you know, it wasn't a wrestling match. It was a fight. But things change. You know what I mean? Shout out to John Moxley. You know, like he's getting better right now. So when we lose a big piece of the company like that, you know, we got to course correct and do different things. And I think that's where I thrive because I'm challenged with last minute stuff and kind of, you know, working on the fly. But you know, everything going forward, I think everybody's just going to be stoked at the stuff we have planned. And even if plans change, I think we are beyond capable of, you know, instead of just putting a Band-Aid on something, like making y'all think that this was the plan all along.
Last question, please.
Punk, when you came in back to wrestling, you said that the only training you've done is cardio. Now that you've been in for a while, have you trained differently, and have you realized different aspects you need to work on?
No, because what am I going to do? Get in the ring and just take a bunch of bumps? Like, I probably only have so many left, you know. So I think the biggest adjustment is it's a different ring. You know, that's not a ring that I've ever been in. It's bigger. It's made different. It's a custom ring. So that's really the only adjustment is getting used to that thing. But I haven't changed the way I train or eat or anything.
I just one thing to note, like, because I thought it was such a historic match, and he made the point that Tony Schiavone had a great line on commentary tonight that so far CM Punk has out-wrestled every opponent he's had, but tonight he was going to have to out-fight Eddie Kingston to win the match, and he out-fought him, and it was a great fight. It was very different than anything else we've seen, and a lot different than these other matches, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody have one more that's really good, or do I have to?
Yeah, no, not at all. Please, if there's a really good one.
I had a follow-up. Punk's Ring of Honor has meant so much to you in your career. Obviously, Ring of Honor is in a weird spot right now. Jay Lethal jumped to the company. What are your thoughts on what's going on with ROH right now? And is there any ROH talent besides Lethal you'd like to see in the company?
I mean, I think it sucks if the place is going to go out of business because people are going to lose their jobs. And I would like to see Brody King here. You know, man, there's so much talent there. So there's so much talent here. I'm sure you're going to see, you know, I didn't even know Lethal was here until that happened. So I'm sure you're going to see different people. You know, it's an exciting time.
And we got one more good one, or is that it?
I said a good one.
I thought that was really good.
Well, it was a question.
It was a question.
With the Eddie spot, is that something you would talk about with Vicky either before or after?
I didn't say anything to Vicky. I just gave her a big, I just gave her a big long hug. Didn't have to see her. I figured people probably talking to her about it all day. You know? I didn't have to say anything. She didn't have to say anything. Just a big old long hug. All right, thanks, guys.
We have a special guest coming in, somebody who I don't think has ever done a scrum before.
Can you turn the lights off first?
But this is his first scrum, so be nice. Ladies and gentlemen, Dante Martin, the hometown hero. Here, get center stage, my friend. Very well, buddy.
How are you guys?
Good.
you guys have questions for Dante after his big win on Rampage and all the people recruiting him? Anybody?
Dante, you've been incredibly impressive watching you each and every single week. I gotta ask you, what has it been like to see all the feedback and the reaction from the fans and your peers, etc.?
It's been crazy. Like seeing all the hard work just pay off is always like an amazing feeling, and to do it here at the Target Center in my hometown was just unreal.
Dante, I saw you at First Ave when you were about 17 wrestling as Airwolf. And after the match, you went up to the mezzanine and you watched the matches afterwards. Have you been? Is that kind of study something you've always done?
For sure. Like at that same show, probably I think it was Darby Allin. So I got to see Darby Allin way before he was here. So that was things like that. Just being able to pick brains of people and kind of just make your way around. It's really good for you.
Dante, congratulations on all of your success lately. It's been very cool to see. Now, let me ask you, just who has really been almost like a mentor to you? Who has been the person that you can go to for advice or tips and whatnot?
If it's not Leo right now, it's Dean Malenko or Jerry, for sure. Jerry.
Dante being in the ring with Lee Moriarty the other night. It seems like another guy that the company can build around for the future. What was that like, and what did he bring out of you?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Lee Moriarty really brings out the best in everybody, and that's why he's here in All Elite. But stepping in the ring with him, it was definitely a competition and one of my hardest yet.
Okay, how long is your brother out, and how tough is this on him seeing you have this big night in Minneapolis and he's still on the sideline?
He's been out since about February now. There's not really like a time gauge on when he's coming back, but he's super excited to be back, ready to take over the tag team scene and keep Top Flight strong.
When Darius got hurt, it was a terrible situation. Like Top Flight are a very big part of the AEW, but we knew it was going to be a long injury. And when Darius got hurt, I think he was still 19. Yeah, I mean, Dante was 19 years old, so it was critical not to let his development get stifled. So it was very important to me to make sure to put him on an accelerated track while Darius was out so that his development continued. And I think we've made lemonades out of a terrible situation, right? Tried to make lemonade out of lemons. And, he's had so many great matches. I remember when we first sat down, I wanted you to Matt Seidel, and what a great rivalry and mentorship and both it has been. And, and now Leo has been such a great coach for Dante also while Darius has been gone. But I think we miss Darius a lot and can't wait for Darius to come back. And also Leo is back on Wednesday, but with Leo being gone, I think for both of us and from everyone in the company, just sending our sympathies to Leo for the loss of his grandmother, which is really a terrible situation.
Dante, you look so great already in the ring for someone so young. Obviously, something you're going to be working on over time is your mic work. Is there anyone you've been working with on that? Is there any advice you've gotten to work on that aspect of your game?
Which part?
Your promo work.
I talked to Eddie Kingston a lot. Eddie Kingston's one of the best guys out there for that. And the amount of knowledge he has is just insane.
Dante, congratulations on everything. How do you see yourself in 5 years?
Hopefully it's me and Darius with the tag belts. That's the best answer I can give you, yeah. Hopefully I'm back with Darius and we're running things around here.
Dante, name something that you learned in AEW with cameras on, a national audience, big crowds, and all the mentors like Jared Landy, like you mentioned. Just what's something you now know that you didn't know a couple years ago about performing in the ring?
One of my biggest things, and it carries out through not only performing in the ring, but just with life, is confidence is like skyrocketed by far.
Dante, being from Minnesota, what were the emotions going through last night right before you came out and you heard that crowd explode for you?
Oh, it was awesome. I was waiting in the tunnel and I could hear Arya out there. The second the crowd just exploded, like my heart was beating. It was just absolutely unreal. So like come back to this building after going to so many wrestling shows here, it was awesome.
What did it mean to have a fellow hometown guy like Arya there as well? I mean, he got an incredible reaction as well.
It was awesome because not only was Arya a hometown guy, but he's also played a hand in training me. So it made the moment even cooler.
Follow-up question for Tony. Is Arya coming in?
Well, Arya did a great job in his debut. He was excellent, and I thought he did everything I could have possibly asked for him. So he's off to a great start with us. We'll see what happens in the future, but I would certainly consider having him back. I really liked him a lot. I've met him before, and I've seen him work a lot before. It was the first time he worked here, and it's a good time. It takes a lot of confidence for me to put somebody on live television in their debut. So that's usually a good track record of things, and they did great in the match, I think.
Dante, I have a final question for you, and mine is, it may be a little bit cheesy, but the people are getting to know you, and like we just mentioned, the promo work and really seeing you out there in the ring. So to the fans, to the audience, what do you want them to know about who you are? Who is Dante Martin?
I'm just here to really show that I'm trying to change the game. I'm trying to innovate, and I'm trying to just absolutely make wrestling 1,000 times better than when I got into it. And I think that's really like why we're all here with All Elite.
Thank you.
Huge shout out to the Young Bucks, because the Young Bucks brought Dante and Darius to me over a year ago. I think you guys DM?
Yeah.
You DM, Matt?
Yeah.
And that's why I saw your highlight video, and we ended up, you guys tried out, and we were doing Dark and Daly's place, and I remember I stopped the tape and came out and told you I was signing you, and you never looked back. And I'm so happy for you, and I really wanted this to be a special weekend for you, so I'm so happy it was.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tony, with so many veteran names coming in right now, like Punk and Brian and Miro and Eddie and literally everybody, how important is it for you, and how difficult is it for you to stay focused on young talent like Dante and making sure that they keep their spot as a prominent member of the roster?
Really important, and I think you saw that across the weekend. Like last night on Rampage, it was a focus for us. Jungle Boy and Dante, huge focus in the show. And, then you have MJF and Darby Allin opening the show. So huge focus on young talent, top to bottom. And I think Dante is one of the most important young talents in the company. He's come so far. And Darius is a great talent, too. When he comes back, you'll have two great singles wrestlers and a great tag team. And we'll see what happens with Leo. Although, to be honest, with Team Taz and the Acclaim, there are a lot of people in the mix for Dante's services right now. It's pretty unscrupulous to be recruiting Dante when Leo's away on the part of Team Taz and the Acclaimed, but nevertheless, everyone wants Dante. So I think he's very important to the company, and that's one thing I really take seriously is making sure we have young stars. Sammy Guevara, the TNT champion, another great young star in the company. So and in the women's division, also so many great young stars in the company with Ty Conti and Anna Jay. And so many other, and Britt Baker, our champion, and we have great young wrestler Jade Cargill, and so many other great young stars, top to bottom, and a great mix there in the women's division, also of veterans and young wrestlers that we have, both men and women, really stacked with great stars of all ages.
As mentioned by Tony, how you and your brother got into AEW by pretty much the Young Bucks, what has it been like to see your evolution of pretty much yourself in the ring?
It's been cool. It's been amazing. I feel, like Tony said, making lemonade out of a bad situation. A lot of my growth has happened since Darius has been out, since he's been injured, and since then, since the pressure's been on me, I feel like I've really driven it in.
You have. Yes. That's great. Is there and one more?
Yeah. Dante, what's that thing here in AEW that you have learned that maybe you didn't learn in the past, and you have made that pretty much fun for yourself?
Besides confidence, there's so much I can't even wrap my head around it. Being here is just amazing. Like, you learn something new every day, whether it be like a big thing or a small thing. Everyone's here just to grow and get better as a family, and can't even think of one thing. For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dante.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I was hoping to get the women's world champion in here with you guys, but she had a long match and she's pretty beat up. So I hope you'll forgive her, and she'll owe you a rain check if there is a next time. But I would like to, speaking of champions, bring in somebody who's challenging for the TNT championship in his first match in AEW. It is official. I'm just saying it right now. On Wednesday night, it will be Sammy Guevara versus Jay Lethal for the TNT championship. Welcome to AEW, champ.
How are you? I haven't stopped smiling since I've got here. This is so freaking cool.
That's awesome having you. Who's the first question? You can call them out as you see them, Jay.
Jay, congratulations on such a huge night. You have a long resume. You've traveled the world. I gotta ask you, why AEW?
Well, I'm a professional wrestler. Our question, if anybody didn't hear, was why AEW? The easy answer is I'm a professional wrestler, and this is the fastest rising, hottest promotion in the freaking world. So it was no contest. It was a very easy decision for any professional wrestler, in my opinion. This place is amazing. AEW is on fire, and I'm so happy to be here, and I'm more excited that they are willing to have me. That's even more exciting in my head.
Yeah, former ROH World Champion. How do you feel about what's going on in ROH right now?
Well, unfortunately, doors are closing soon there. I've made a lot of friends there. I've wrestled there for over 10 years. I'm a very loyal professional wrestler. If you're good to me, I'll stay there till the doors close. And the doors are closing, and an opportunity presented itself, Mr. Opportunist here. And I was welcomed in with open arms. So, but to answer your question, my heart goes out to a lot of those guys who no longer have jobs. It's a sad time, but also a great time to be a professional wrestler because the wrestling world right now is freaking booming.
Jay, can you take us through Tony making contact with you and how this all came about?
Sure. It all happened so quick, literally only a few days ago. And I like my head was spinning because. So imagine
we never met. Today was
the first time we met. Yeah, and talked face to face. Imagine being, for lack of a better term, jobless and wondering about how you're going to pay your bills and such. And you're a professional wrestler, which is there's not a ton of jobs. You just can't fill an application anywhere. So chips were down, and obviously, I got a quick message from some of Tony's associates, which was like the greatest day, like a beacon of light. So it was so cool. But literally, that was only a few days ago. Then I flew in yesterday and had to sit in my hotel room, and I couldn't get any sleep. I swear to God, I got not a minute, not an hour of sleep, because all I could think about was, well, I don't really know what's happening tomorrow, because we haven't met yet. We haven't talked. This is our first time meeting face to face. It was wild. All these thoughts going through my mind. Will the people like me? Will it be a good? I mean, the company's on fire right now. I hope I make a good impression. So, just a wild rush of emotions in my head.
Jay, so you're just meeting Tony Khan for the first time here today, and you've been here in the locker room for AEW today. So I want to get your idea on what has been your initial impressions of Tony and everybody here.
Well, the easiest way to answer that is that this feels like home immediately. Other than meeting Tony for the first time today, I walked into the building and instantly saw people that I have met throughout my 20 years of professional wrestling. Some I was very close with, some I just met a few times in passing. Some men and women I hadn't seen in over 15 years, and it was as if we had never skipped a beat. And so right away, my first 30 seconds here, I was like, man, this is home. And like I mentioned before, I'm a very loyal professional wrestler, so I plan on being here till the doors close. I plan on this being my home forever.
Leading question, Jay, but how gratifying was the crowd response?
Oh my goodness. Oh man, that was one of the coolest parts. Like, for a professional wrestler, right before you go through that curtain or right before you go out, you're so worried. And if a wrestler ever tells you he's not, then they're lying. But both men and women are so worried about how the crowd will perceive them. We all want to get the perfect reaction. And I just wanted them to be excited as I was that I was here. And I think I got that. It was unreal. And like, I wanted to cry, and everything inside of me was like, oh yes, this is freaking good, Literally, that's like the hardest thing to describe as I say that, because it was so like an indescribable emotion inside to know that you come to a new place and they're willing to have you, and the people, the fans are so accepting of you. And yeah, it's just wild as a dream come true. I've always said that my career, I always compared my career to, I don't know if anybody's ever seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It was one of my favorite movies also, but Charlie, I feel like I'm Charlie. I won the golden ticket to be in the professional wrestling world. And it's just lucky win after lucky win, being in the right place at the right time. I bought that chocolate bar at the right time because everything that I've gotten to do up until this very point has been amazing. I really consider it being that I won the lottery. But also something that I wanted to mention too, everything that I've gotten to do before coming here, I'm probably the only one on the roster who can say that I hold victories over Kurt Angle and Sting and Ric Flair, and I got to work with Kevin Nash. And man, I'm probably the only one who can say that, which is why I believe it was so easy for me to find that forbidden door. But they don't tell you what that forbidden door is, but it is a little easier to find if you've accomplished something. But now that I've come through that forbidden door, I don't want to be defined by all those things that I did before. I want to be defined by the things that I'm going to do and looking towards the future. And they say when you come to a wrestling company, you gotta go after a big fish to make a statement. And I would have loved to gone after the world championship or made some kind of statement or claim that I'm going to do that, but I have too much love and respect for professional wrestling. I don't want to be the new guy coming in, leapfrogging a bunch of people who have worked their butts off. And if you don't believe that there's been tons of people here who worked their butts off that deserve a shot at the AEW world title more than I do, then you're insane. But Sammy has his open challenge, so I figured I'm not really leapfrogging anybody if he's got an open challenge, so that's why I challenged Sammy.
Jay, how much time did you have left on your Ring of Honor deal? And whenever it would have expired, would this have been something you would have pursued, or because you were so loyal, would you have been more likely to stay with?
I had about a month left, up until maybe 6 days ago, where I asked for my release. Because I knew that as a professional wrestler, and everybody knows there was left and right people are released. There's a massive amount of free agents. And for a professional wrestler, if you don't strike while the iron is hot, then you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So I figured bet on myself and try something, and I got a response, and it worked. And I'm so thankful for it. But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Jay, you've been a master of reinventing yourself over the years.
I don't know if I'd say that.
Everything, all along your last run in Ring of Honor with the Pure Championship and the Pure Wrestling was amazing. Who are you looking forward to working with most in AEW?
Well, Sammy Guevara is number one. Also, I have said in several interviews that I've ever had, they've asked me plenty of times, at least 7 to 8, who's your dream opponent? And on the top of that list is Chris Jericho. I've been a fan of his growing up for years. Of course, I'm only 36, so I watched him growing up on television. So on the top of the list, he'd be my number one pick. But I would love it if I got to step into the ring with everybody. I know that may sound like I'm trying to escape the question, but I really can't wait to step into the ring with every AEW superstar.
Jay, will you be at Final Battle?
I will not be. My new home is AEW.
Final question?
Tony, have you spoken to any other people that might or might not be under contract?
I can't say. I don't want to talk about any potential free agents or anything like that. But I think it's a huge bit of news that Jay's here, and it's a huge match for Wednesday night TNT title. Jay Lethal versus Sammy Guevara. Very excited about it, and I think it's huge news tonight at Full Gear, and it was such a great pay-per-view, and great to have some big surprises and big news coming out of the show. Thank you very much, Jay.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This is my new home.
That's great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks for sticking
And
around.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Get home safe, everybody. I don't know if it's so slow.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Tony.
I think we'll have one more person joining us, maybe.
Yeah.
So you're gonna ride a horse?
Maybe.
Tony, I have a question for you.
Sure.
With
I'm
all-
gonna stick around, by the way, after our last guest, and I'll just talk to you guys after.
Okay, but with all the stuff that you're doing with Warner Communication, is there going to be more synergy, such as when you started, DC Comics was involved, things like that?
Hold that. I'll answer that right after this. Ladies
Okay.
and gentlemen, for the very first time, the AEW World Champion, Hangman Adam Page.
It's weird as this media, there's not like a big crowd and cheering, you know? Yeah, hey guys, what's up?
Hangman, congratulations on your huge win. Now, pro wrestling is all about moments, and you had a moment that you became the world champion. What does this moment mean to you as you're in this point in your career?
This means everything, man. This is, now I'm gonna cry. Man, this is just everything I've worked for my whole life. I've just put so much of myself into this, in ways that were tough, very tough, but ultimately very cathartic. And to hear people just losing their shit for it, man, you just can't be prepared for that. This is one of the biggest moments.
Paige, congratulations again. How significant is for you to win that belt over Kenny Omega?
The best wrestler in the world, and I beat him. There's nothing that could be more special. I've known Kenny for so long. I've looked up to Kenny. I mean, probably even before I started wrestling, I was watching clips of Kenny on YouTube. I remember the first time I saw Kenny was, the Falls Count Anywhere or whatever match outdoors where he takes a hurricane run and rolls down the hill or whatever. I saw that as a kid almost, and somehow I ended up befriending him, and for a long time one of my best friends, and now bitter rivals. But to finally vanquish the person I've always thought was the best wrestler in the world, it feels surreal. It hasn't set in.
Adam, what do you hope to bring to AEW as AEW World Champion? What do you hope your reign signifies in the history of AEW?
Cowboy shit. I don't know. It's so tough. This has just happened for me, so it's very hard to get my thoughts together. And I'm sorry for a lot of these questions. I don't have very clear answers, but I have a feeling I will be up all night. I have a feeling I will text my media guy and I'll put out a little press release like I do sometimes.
Adam, this was the culmination of a story that was told over the course of almost 3 years. You don't see that kind of love and care put into a lot of stories in pro wrestling these days. So to be on the receiving end of that, how special is that for you, and what was it like being part of that journey?
This is why I've always loved wrestling. You got sometimes glimmers of the person who you were watching on your TV, but it seemed like a lot of times you never really got that full person. And for a long time, I had a hard time figuring out what it was about me that stood out, what it was about me that was going to get me somewhere, how I was going to find success. And I finally just figured, screw it, I'll just be me. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, I was honest. So I guess I came by it honest. And it's been an incredible ride, and it's been a privilege of my life.
Adam, a lot of people thought this might have happened a couple months sooner, but you had some pretty fortunate things that happened in your life that might have prevented that. And when you came back, you mentioned that you got an incredible ovation for it. How was that for you to hear that maybe it wasn't your time a couple months ago, but fans not only were okay with it, they loved it because you were doing what you wanted to do?
I don't want to share, but so much personal information. But my wife and I, we've been together for a long time, and then I was in Bullet Club, I was on a hot run, I was traveling to Japan. So then you wonder, if you want to start a family, is now the time? Well, no, because I'm busy. And then AEW started, and then I thought, well, I might win this championship on the first go around, so is now the right time? No, I'm busy. And then we came by the answer that there's never a right time. There never will be. So we were ready to start a family. And I'm very fortunate and very thankful for Tony for, letting me literally, right in the middle of what felt like the hottest run of my career to go back home and take some time and be at home. And I ended up staying at home a little bit longer than I intended to. And I'm just extremely grateful for the opportunity to do that because wrestling doesn't work that way most times. I was extremely fortunate to be able to be home and be there for that and spend time with my son and my wife. Yeah, unreal.
Congrats on that, brother. Thank you.
Hangman, you gave a great relatable promo afterwards talking about self-doubt and lying to yourself. It seemed very laid bare and real. Is that something that has been dogging you, and how have you helped yourself get over that hump?
Yeah, I mean, I told you everything that I've said is just me. I figured a long time ago, fuck it, I'll just say what I feel. I'll just be me. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And if it does, I came by honest. And every bit of it, and even after the match, I thought all day, if I win this thing, I'm going to pour tears everywhere. I'm just going to lose it. And it didn't come. I couldn't believe it. So that was a lie to myself. And I told myself a lot of lies. And there's a small part of me that even going into the night was saying that I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be good enough. The match wouldn't be good enough. I wasn't going to be a champion. A small part, but I've managed to shrink that part. I don't think that really played probably. But you can minimize it. And that's very, very real.
If there's one thing we know about wrestling, it's that plans change. This was a really long story. What were some of the challenges to keeping this story on track to get it told the way you wanted?
Oh my God, everything. Everything. Oh man. We in 2020 had a global pandemic. That was a thing. We lost our crowds. We lost, guys were out with injuries and this and that. I had a baby. There was, oh my God, there's just so many things. I couldn't even count them all. If you had known what we may have wanted to do 2 or 3 years ago, it wouldn't even remotely match up to where we are today. But that is, to me, the brilliance of wrestling. You just roll with the punches. Every Wednesday would be something new. Oh my God, what are we going to do about this? And I'm sure it will be Wednesday as well. So, and we have an incredible team that's able to make that work, and I think a lot of it is because we put a lot of ourselves into this. When we get there Wednesday and something's gone wrong or whatever, we figure it out, and we just tell you how we feel about it.
Adam, how are you going to approach your job differently showing up Wednesday for Dynamite as champion? A lot of people who don't understand wrestling don't understand that it's more than just the belt. It has to do with carrying the company behind the scenes and representing it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I haven't gotten that far in my mind. I'm just going to try to be the best version of me that I can. That's all I've been doing this whole time. And I'm sure that every day I'll figure out a new problem and try to rise to the challenge. I'll just be the best of me that I can. That's really what I want.
Adam, it looked like after the match you said something to Kenny as he was laying on the mat. Do you mind telling us what that was?
No. I
Next up is Bryan Danielson. Thoughts on that match as your first challenger?
Wow. I know I said Kenny was the best in the world, but if you had to challenge me for someone who could tie him, it would be Bryan Danielson. So I'm not very surprised he's the number one contender. That's a lot to think about, and I just won this damn thing. So I'm going to think about this tonight, and tomorrow morning I'll start thinking about that. Yeah.
Adam, can you think about maybe for a minute what it's going to be like to bring that belt home on Wednesday to Virginia?
That's going to be incredible. That's going to be wild. I'm very excited. It's one of the few shows for AEW I'm going to get to drive to. So I'm going to sit this sucker in the passenger seat. I'll probably buckle her up. And we'll roll on into Norfolk. I'm very excited about it. Yeah.
Adam, you've been very open about your insecurity. You even say on your Twitter page you're an anxious millennial cowboy. Eddie Kingston just did an article about his depression and mental health issues. What does it feel like being in a place that allows you to be vulnerable as a pro wrestler in this business?
Sometimes wrestling can be behind the times, but I feel like AEW is able to keep up with the times. because a lot of times we're just allowed to be ourselves and allowed to be honest. And the way the world, talks about their mental health has changed so much in the past, even just a couple of years. And when you let somebody go out there and just be themselves, sometimes that's what comes out, and it's an incredible thing that we can do that, and we don't have to worry about, like, oh, I don't look tough enough or whatever, because these are things that people go through in real life, and it's I think it's better that even the world champion can be honest about.
Thank you very much.
So there's that.
Anyone one more good one, anybody? Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a great night, and thank you very much, Hangman Adam Page.
Hey, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
congratulations
guys. Appreciate
again.
it. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Hangman. That was a great night. Well, all right. Well, that was awesome. If you guys don't mind, I'm gonna get a quick drink of water here and talk to you guys for a minute. Mandy, you want to hand this to you when I show? Thanks, buddy. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we know at heart you're a wrestling fan. What match tonight exceeded your expectations, and what match maybe didn't live up to your expectations?
I thought everything was tremendous. My expectations were very high, and the card was top to bottom excellent. I've had multiple people text me this is their favorite pay-per-view. So I think everything has to hit expectations and then some. And so coming off All Out, I think the expectations from everyone, inside and fans of the company as well, would be very high. And I think we lived up to the expectations and then some. I thought everything was great.
How about individual matches?
Oh man, from the beginning of the show, it was great. I mean, MJF and Darby started out great, and Hangman and Kenny closed it out great, and everything in between was tremendous. And there were also such different kinds of cool matches. So everything from start to finish was tremendous. You don't see anything really like the prize fight that CM Punk and Eddie Kingston had. The street fight, the Falls Count Anywhere match were excellent. I thought Britt Baker and Ty Conti was tremendous. Maybe Britt's best defense of the title yet. I think 100% the best match Ty Conti's had I've ever seen anywhere in pro wrestling. And really start to finish, I thought everything on the show was excellent. All the matches, the tag match, I loved Cody and Pac versus Andrade Malachi. I loved FTR versus the Lucha Brothers. And really the whole show, top to bottom, is excellent. Brian Danielson and Miro was excellent. I think it was one of the best matches of Miro's career and Brian Danielson's excellent career. Another great pay-per-view match, and sets up a huge match between Hangman and Brian Danielson. It wasn't a wrestling match, but I thought it was a very cool surprise for Jay Lethal to come on the scene and get the reaction he did and challenge Sammy for the TNT title, which is a huge match on Wednesday. I think people were really excited to see. So top to bottom, the show was excellent. I thought all the wrestling delivered, and I was very, very happy with it. Thank you.
Tony, congratulations on such a huge night. Great show. So as full gear approached, we saw the attention put onto guys like CM Punk and Eddie Kingston who have traveled the world and who had a great match tonight. So why and how do you think AEW has become a place to give those guys a platform to have a great match and also to tell a story that fans are emotionally invested in?
I think it's been that from day one. I mean, from our first show, Double or Nothing in 2019, it's been a platform for wrestlers to come in and have great wrestling matches. Cody versus Dustin, and Young Bucks versus Lucha Brothers, and Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho. Our first show, there was really great wrestling across the card, and I think we've had that on all of our pay-per-view shows, and tonight was another great one. So we've been a platform for wrestlers to come in and have great wrestling matches from the beginning. Eddie Kingston came into the company last year and has had a lot of great matches, and CM Punk has only been in the company a few months and has already had several great wrestling matches. And tonight was a fight, like we said on commentary. He's out-wrestled his opponents. He's had a bunch of great wrestling matches against a variety of opponents, including Darby Allin and Bobby Fish, Daniel Garcia, a number of other great wrestling matches, but definitely this was the first real bloody fight he's been in, and it was a great fight. And both of them have, I believe, found a great home here in AEW. And a lot of people have found a great home here, and even Jay Lethal, who just has gotten here tonight, is already feeling at home. So.
Thank you.
Tony, it's quite a juxtaposition. Last time we got to talk to you, it was all about bringing in people from another company and making them big-time stars. Whereas tonight, you're building a homegrown star. You have that culmination. How do you manage as a booker going from one extreme to the other like that? How fulfilling of a culmination was it for you to see your guy?
I do think it was a mix of things, because our last pay-per-view, I still think was a lot of it was about the homegrown stars in that moment, and at the end of the show it was a mix of homegrown stars and new stars coming in, because even though at the end of the show, yeah, you had Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks out there with Adam Cole, who is an established star in pro wrestling. He has a long history with them, it made sense, but really that segment elevated Jungle Boy, and again we saw the elevation of Jungle Boy that's been happening in recent months, going back to Double or Nothing. But even tonight, on the flip side, tonight also was about stars coming in, a new one with Jay Lethal arriving on the scene, and I think a star from another company that had just arrived tonight. And also, so I think it's a mix of things, and if that last show was maybe more one thing than the other, but still a balance, I think maybe there was more of, seeing those wrestlers and less focus on new people in some ways, but then probably when you didn't think there were going to be any new people coming in tonight, Jay Lethal came in right before the main event, challenged Sammy coming off of the great street fight, and I thought that Dan Lambert and of course the UFC fighters were tremendous. Andrei Arlovsky and Junior Dos Santos really, I think, took a lot of people by surprise with his athleticism and that moonsault he did. I think I like to do both, and sometimes you do more one than the other, so it's a mix of the things. That's a great question.
Tony, Hangman Page was the first person to come out at that first press conference and say, I want to be AEW champion. And a lot of people thought maybe he would be. Was there ever any consideration given to that? Who did you, in your mind, when you launched AEW, were you like first AEW champion?
Chris Jericho. And then John Moxley, Kenny Omega.
So it never deviated.
No, and honestly, if you look back, they all set up. I mean, Chris wrestled Kenny, and then it built to Kenny coming back to wrestle later for the title, teaming with Hangman. Hangman also wrestled Chris. He got the close, and then it built to Chris and John, and that's where John won the title. And while that was happening, Kenny and Hangman had their partnership, their story, and John made all those great defenses through the pandemic and was such a great pandemic champion. And then last winter, we did Kenny versus Hangman at this event last year, which was a very different thing. It wasn't in this great arena with over 10,000 fans packed in this awesome arena. We were in a great venue in Daly's Place, and it felt like a big pay-per-view. I don't know if anybody was in Jacksonville for full gear last year, but that was a great show too. And yeah, there were only 1,300 people socially distanced. But when the Young Bucks won the World Tag title, when Darby won the TNT title, they were real pops, and the fans in Jacksonville helped us get to this point where this meant something tonight. Last year, Kenny and Hangman had that great match in the Eliminator final, and then we came full circle to this, and I think it all made sense. Kenny won the title and had an amazing reign. He was very close to 1 year as champion, and there was a question, is Kenny going to make it to 1 year as champion, or is Hangman going to be crowned tonight? And the people clearly wanted to see Hangman be crowned, but when Bryan Danielson won the Eliminator tournament, you had to ask yourself, are Kenny and Bryan Danielson going to wrestle again? I know everybody was thinking in the back of their head there has to be a chance.
So you're setting up these pieces consciously, obviously, right?
Yeah, and even when Bryan Danielson won, I knew it was going to make you all think. Wait a second. And it clearly did from the reaction of getting in the room. Nobody's saying it didn't. So, okay, that's good. That makes me feel better. These things are all pretty well thought out in advance. So yeah, the first four I would have told you along would be Chris Jericho, John Moxley, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Page.
This is directly related, but do you have a fifth and a sixth that you?
I don't want to say that. A lot of things have changed since then, but I mean, these guys have been here from the very beginning, from the first show. These are four people that have been in the mix for that title in AEW, and arguably the four top people in the company in that time. So it's now there are new faces, but we'll see what's happening. I do think right now the important thing is to focus on. It's been a long time for Hangman to chase this title, and I think there's no rest for the weary. Like he said, you should enjoy it tonight, but then he's got the biggest test you could put in front of any pro wrestler in Bryan Danielson coming up. So, and we know Bryan Danielson loves to wrestle, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Cody got booed again tonight, and he's sort of the only performer that fans don't react the way it's drawn up. Have you thought about simplifying things, back to basics, what do you think the solution is?
Well, people are definitely reacting in his matches. And I don't think, the most important thing is people are very engaged. And I don't think it's stopped him from having great matches that people care about. His matches and segments have done great ratings. So, it is another one of those things like I spoke about earlier. A lot of conventions I think have changed recently. People had asked me about some of the matches which are not traditional, like CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston, two people who fans really like, right? Two baby faces, you could say. Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston, similar, great fight, arguably one of the best matches of the year. I think a number of intelligent wrestling people think that was the best wrestling match of the year. And certainly the best wrestling match on television, I think a lot of people have thought. And that's very debatable too. There's been a lot of great stuff on TV this year. A lot of people who would take a argument with that, but it's one of the best matches, and certainly in Rampage, one of the best matches in the short history of that show. And then CM Punk and Darby Allin is a great match. Bryan Danielson a great match with Dustin Rhodes. So there's all kinds of different reactions and ways to get people into a wrestling match. But one thing that I think is telling is his segments have done good ratings, and people still take him very seriously in the mix. It's not like when he's in there in a big match, people think he shouldn't be in them with the quality. So he's still a very big star. I don't see it like that, and I also think to be honest, some of it comes from who's out there, because in that situation, like if he's out there with people that get big reactions and are cool heels. So there's a consciousness to me that like a lot of times there's a lot of Malachi Black fans, there's a lot of Andrade El Idolo fans. So it's not that unusual to me. And you see it, and I think there were other matches, not just tonight, but other times where we've seen the fans make an interesting choice or not sure how the fans were going to side in a match. But no, I think the way we're doing is pretty good.
Did the mixed reaction that he gets factor in how you mapped out the finish to that tag match?
No, not really. I mean, I take into account the reactions and stuff, but I think that again, people have a good reaction to him, and at the end of the match, I think there's still an interesting thing happening, because clearly Andrade and Malachi, and particularly FTR, are still pretty aggrieved with the Death Triangle and Cody. So I think there's still interesting things out there. Dax got rocked in the match, so Cash switched masks with him because he didn't think Dax was going to be able to keep going in the match. So Cash put his mask on, and then Cash ended up being the one to get pinned. And he's pretty upset because Cash, has in his mind the legitimate beef because he was the illegal man, but of course he also tried to pull the switcheroo. So it's kind of a what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But those guys are upset, they said to me. And so I think we've got like a good setup for more interesting stuff. And really, I just thought it was a great match. And I think the fans, enjoyed it. But I think you have to look at who the opponents are sometimes too.
Tony, Rampage has had some great moments in matches, but that Friday 10 p.m. Eastern time slot is sometimes tough to get people to tune into.
Isn't it, Nick, a bit of an objective criteria? I mean, it's the numbers we do are still one of the top shows.
I'm not saying that.
So I think sometimes people think that the number you do for Dynamite should be the exact number you do for Rampage, but it's really an apples to oranges comparison.
I'm not trying to diminish what Rampage is doing at that time slot. I'm just asking, would you like to or have plans to move that show to a different time slot where you could see more people getting access to the content?
Well, it's frequently the number one show in its time slot, and it's beating pretty much everything we faced head to head, and very often, it's been one of the tops. It's been number one show a number of times, even out of that time slot on all of Friday TV.
Sure. And
frequently it's in the top 5, top 3, 4, 5. So it's a great, and what we do out of that slot is very impressive. So they're really happy with the show. So the fans, they see if it doesn't do as big a number as Dynamite, to them, it's not good. But the fact is, for the time slot it's in, it's performed really well, and they're really happy with it. So I'm thrilled with it because it's a great franchise for us. If it were ever to change and be, in a different slot, I would do the best I could in that spot too. And whatever the standard is, if it was a spot where the average is higher, then we would have to do a higher average. But in the spot we're in, we do really, really well. So it's funny, but the weeks that the Fast Nationals don't leak, it's always a pretty good number. And if the Fast Nationals leak, I wonder why, and I wonder who leaks them. But
do you wonder?
No, I really don't.
Yeah, I was about to say.
No, I don't. That's subjective on their part. I think we all know what's happening. I don't think it's particularly, to their benefit. But, I think it's done really well. And if you ask the network in the slot how they feel about it, it's really good. But I get that Dynamite is in in many ways a more attractive time slot, but also like that's why I put so many awesome matches that would make Rampage a destination for the hardcore wrestling viewer, no matter where they go, even if they have to turn it on in somebody else's house or in a bar or on their phone. You don't want to miss Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston. You don't want to miss Andrade versus Pac 2. These are really special matches. And even trying to put something in cool last night that was like a throwback to an old cruiserweight match with Dante and Arya, where, again, it's two baby faces, but they're both from here, and the crowd was never going to not care about what both of them were doing. And if they're going to go high spot, high spot, high spot, my psychology was like, okay, well, at least they care about both guys. Go bam, bam, bam. It's 6 minutes. And they did great. So there's all different kinds of shapes and reactions, and the psychology of matches is different, and that's one of the things that I think makes it great. But so I definitely think it's cool, like having wrestling on Friday night, even if that's not the easiest time to draw viewers. There's something to it. Like a lot of us grew up on that, and it's a great block. And if you're a wrestling fan who wants to watch everything, there's a lot of great wrestling on Friday night sometimes. So
sure. So no plans to change the time.
No. I think I really I think it's our time. And we're going forward. Obviously, everybody knows Dynamite next year is going to move to TBS after January, but Rampage is staying on TNT, and as far as I know, that's a slot. Plus, Battle of the Belts coming in January too. So even though Dynamite's moving to TBS, we'll actually have another show coming to TNT. So it's exciting.
Can I follow up on that? One of the things, we only get the Fast Nationals, but you're also on the TNT app. You're on demand, and there's the Day Plus 7. And we never hear about that. How does AEW do in those?
Well, it's interesting because like I don't leak that stuff as much, and then after it comes out, like the 7s take 7 days, so they're not really the story anymore. But like there have, for example, when we went head to head, like a lot got made when we did the Friday where we were doing our show, and then all of a sudden I found out there was a 30-minute window where we have competition head to head, and we won the 30 minutes head to head in the demo. And I found out that like for the entire night with the plus 7s we won. Now the 8 to our 10 to 11 beat the entire 8 to 10:30. So not only did we win the head to head straight up and with significantly with the DVR, but also with the plus 7s we actually won the whole night, which is interesting. But I at the end of the day we have to do good wrestling shows, and I think for better or for worse, like in wrestling. The wrestlers win and lose, but the companies live and die by these business metrics, and fans are judged to really care about. Fans are taught to judge them and really care about them, and I think it does matter. It's mattered since I was young, and the ratings have never been more important in many ways. But the most important thing for the fans, I think, is to know that we're doing really, really, really well. And, to have two shows that are consistently around the top 5, top 10, and that have both finished at number 1 multiple times, that is a really cool thing to do. And the TV industry has changed a lot just since we started. Like, a lot of people don't know this. The wrestling business has done very well over the last 2 years when you consider that there was a 9% decline over the last year in cable and satellite subscribers, and there was a 9% decline the year before that. So you're down 18% from when we started. So bear in mind all the numbers you're looking at over the last couple of years since AEW started for everybody. All the numbers are 18% less people in the world. So judge against that curve, and I think that's an important thing people don't talk about very much. But it's also pretty cool that Dynamite in that time has held up so well and has actually had growth. And while the universe has declined 18% on cable, and I think a lot of that speaks to how a lot of the wrestlers that have been here from the beginning, whether it is Hangman Page in the last match of the card beating Kenny Omega, or whether it's MJF and Darby Allin in the first match, or everything in between. So the people that have been here from the beginning, and then the new stars that have come in that time, CM Punk and Eddie Kingston, Bryan Danielson and Miro, and so many great examples. We've gotten so much stronger as a company. Britt Baker, probably always going to say a company started the single most improved wrestler in the world, and the world champion wrestling, the number 1 contender, Ty Conti, and he is also one of the most improved wrestlers, and that had to be the best match he's ever wrestled tonight, in my opinion. So I do think, yeah. So anyway, to your point, yeah, it's all different.
Quick content and clarity on a follow-up. Does that include like Sling and YouTube TV, or does that offset some of the 18%?
No, the direct. I know that would as far as like linear subscribers to linear, that digital has gone up in that time.
Yeah.
But in terms of the cable satellite universe that we're talking those numbers, that's actually gone down 18% in that time.
Yeah.
Does AEW have anything comparable to a wellness policy or wellness testing? And if a talent, a full-time talent, were to need help, does the company cover a portion or all of that?
Yeah, it certainly depends on the situation, but there have been times where we have covered that, and certainly been there for people when they needed time off. The most obviously visible situation and the most recent situation we would talk about is with John, and I think that's a lot of that is private between us. I mean, I would say, and I think he would be okay with us saying that the company was very supportive of him taking the time off, even though it definitely affected my plans and it definitely affected the way the company was going. And I think we're very fortunate we have so many great wrestlers in the company that we had such a great show tonight, and you're missing one of the best wrestlers in the world, John Moxley, who's been one of the most important people in the company since day one, and that's a huge loss. And still, we had a great show because there's so many great people here that all stepped up. And so, but to your point, yeah, we do, and I am very supportive of people taking that time off and try to help how I can.
Sorry, Tony, when Jay Lethal was out here earlier, he mentioned he isn't going to be doing Final Battle, which I found striking, given he's been the cornerstone of the promotion for such a long time. That is sort of their send-off. Can you talk about how that decision came to be and what it might reflect about your feelings towards ROH?
He hasn't asked about doing it. To me, I think he came in, he wanted to wrestle Sammy Guevara for the TNT title and focus on that match and on potentially winning the TNT title and being the TNT champion. So he never asked about wrestling Final Battle. So when you guys asked him about that, that was the first time anybody here's asked about that, because he never asked me about it and I never asked him. So if he wanted to do it, I'm not saying I necessarily would have said no, but it wasn't something he asked me about doing. I think he was ready to move on and try to win the TNT title.
Tony, any plans on coming to Canada in 2022? And if so, which city you would like to run first?
I would love to come to Canada. There are a number of great cities all across Canada. There's so many great wrestling cities in Canada. It's a great country for wrestling, and I have so much respect for so many Canadian wrestlers from different cities. I'd like to go a number of places. I'm very biased towards Toronto because my father owns the Four Seasons Hotel in Toronto. Yeah, I've been wanting to say something for a long time. I'm just going to say it. I've never brought this up, but I see people say stuff online, and me bringing this up will probably only make it worse, but I'm just going to say it. My dad bought the Four Seasons Hotel in Toronto from a person who is a Saudi person 5 years ago, and that is the beginning and the end of it. It is very much an apples and oranges thing when you compare the ongoing business relationship that is going on with Saudi Arabia to what my dad did purchasing a property and moving on from a person, not the government. But I see people say it's like, oh, Shad Khan did that, Shad Khan. That's bullshit. And I've seen people say it for years, and if you're a wrestling fan and you see people say it, I would ask you to say that's not the case, because my dad is not involved in ongoing businesses, and he bought this hotel from a person years ago. Very different thing from what's going on in that part of the world. And for years I wanted to mention this, and since I brought up Canada, I just thought it would be a relevant thing to say. I love Toronto, and the Four Seasons Hotel is one of the most beautiful hotels in the world, and my dad made a great investment there, and I love the city very much, and it's also one of the great wrestling cities. I went there on spring break in college. I drove up to see The Rock wrestle Hulk Hogan, and when Phil was sitting right here tonight, Mr. Punk was sitting here tonight, and talking about feeling it in the moment, like I felt something in the moment too, because I remembered being in Toronto, and I was the only person cheering for The Rock. There were 70,000 people there. And my friend looked over at me like, what are you doing? And I looked at him and like, somebody has to. And that's how I felt about the Punk people tonight. They loved him so much, but there were way, 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 way more Punk people tonight than there were Rock people in Toronto. Way more. And I was in both buildings. And so I know, I've seen what it's like when somebody makes that choice in the building, because Rock made a choice that I think everybody here knows the choice he made in the building that night and where he ended up. And he had no self-consciousness and he had no ego about it. He did the right thing, and he made that a great match and did all the right things. And I think Mr. Punk did all the right things tonight to make this a great match tonight too. So I have a lot of great things to say about Toronto in particular, but there's a lot of great cities in Canada. So I didn't want to limit it to that one, but I thought I'd bring that up.
Tony, a bit of a similar question, but since travel's opened up a lot more, like I'm here for instance, any more headway on Crable Cottage show in the UK, especially with it looking like WWE are going to run a stadium show there next year?
Yeah, I would love to go to Craven Cottage, and international travel, things are trending really great, and the way things are trending, I would say that there's a good chance. I love, things are going really, really great at Fulham right now, which is the most important thing happening at Craven Cottage right now. We've won 6 straight matches and kept 5 straight clean sheets. We have a lot of players out in the international break right now doing very well. So when it comes to Craven Cottage, my main focus is football, but one of my dreams is to take AEW there in the off season. Hopefully, Fulham players will be celebrating a promotion and getting ready to come back and play in the Premier League, and I would love very much to bring AEW there too. So nothing would make me happier than to be in London with our players in the Premier League and with AEW in the Cottage.
Tony, I asked a little earlier about a relationship with Warner. Will you be doing more teaming up with them like you did in the beginning with DC Comics and things like that?
I would like to. Thank you, by the way, because I know you asked that question and we had one, and thanks for waiting. So I really appreciate that. I would like to do more things like that with DC Comics, and I do think there's a good chance. We've got a number of synergies with Warner, and as the company grows and we bring in more stars and develop more young stars, both. They're having interest in both a lot of the young wrestlers and a lot of the big stars and different properties and different things we can do both on TV. And I think there will be some things with DC happening, hopefully with the comic books, I hope, but also I think hopefully with, on-screen content. So a lot of good things happening there.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for holding that. Sorry, I'm glad you brought it up again.
Tony, is there anything about the crowd reactions tonight for the matches and the ebb and flow of the show that made you second guess any decision in terms of the order of the matches? And did any crowd reactions surprise you, good or bad tonight?
No, I mean, I was curious how Punk and Eddie was going to go, but it went pretty much like I expected. I knew there was going to be some Eddie cheers, and I think it was kind of a Rock Hogan situation, but I was really, like I said, it wasn't like it wasn't like the person cheering for CM Punk was me in Skydome. There were a lot of people cheering for CM Punk. It wasn't like the one person who felt like they had to support their guy. I was curious about that one, but no, nothing else really surprised me. The fans were into everything. I mean, let me ask you, did you think? I mean, you can be honest. I thought that I really liked the match order. I felt really strongly about it. Did you not like it?
No, I thought it worked.
Great. Okay, good. No, then I'm good. I'm glad you liked it.
I thought it was a good shot. I think you could have scrambled them and it still would have worked. I don't think it was to me, it was not an obvious match order night because I didn't think there was an obvious number 2 match. It felt like there was an ensemble of matches that could have been featured at any time.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny and Hangman, I think Kenny versus Hangman, that's a great way to put it. Kenny versus Hangman, I think, is the one match that had to go at the end. And then everything else, you're totally right, you could have debated. I think it was wise to put some time between the street fight and Falls Count Anywhere, but also they were very different matches. They were very different kinds of matches, and I thought they were both really, really strong, but very different. And other than that, no, I really loved the way the card set up. I thought MJF and Darby had a perfect opener, just really perfect. Symbolic, too, for 2 of the stars from the beginning before Dynamite even launched. When we were a startup company, these are people we'd earmarked to be stars of the future. And for them to do that, I thought was really special. It reminded me of when MJF and Jungle Boy tore the house down in an empty Daly's Place for Double or Nothing 2020, which was really like a transitional pay-per-view. It was weird doing the shows in Daly's Place because it was almost like pivoting to more like a territory for a while because the setup of the show is still like, I tried to keep the show in the ring and in the arena, but I mean, I tried to think of it more like a studio wrestling show in big space. And now being back in the arena and having the fans back, their reactions are so important. They made the show that much better, and I thought they were great tonight. So the reactions I thought were great top to bottom. So you scared me for a second. I thought there was something you didn't like. No, I'm glad. Okay, good. I feel better. Well, good. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Tony, can you give us an update about John Moxley? Have you spoken with him?
I have not. No, I'm talking to Renee. He's just mostly talking to Renee while he's in the treatment facility, but he's doing well. And Renee has said, I talk to Renee a few times a week, and she said he's doing better all the time. Feels better and sounds better, and that makes me so happy. And then while he's in there, we're doing the heavy lifting, plugging his book. So if anybody wants to buy John's book, it's the best wrestling book I've read. Brian Danielson and his friends have been doing some of the lifting. I was on the radio this week telling people that, and I mean it. He's a great person, and if you get to know him, and I think a lot of you have interviewed him, and you read the book, it's like talking to him. It's like he's just talking to you instead of reading a book. I'm excited for when he does the audiobook. It'll just be like John cutting the longest promo. He's doing well. I was talking to Renee a few days ago.
Tony, in terms of the fact we're 2 months away from really starting this new year, so 2022, what are some goals on the business side, on the creative side for you, for AEW as a whole, something that you would like to see accomplished maybe by the end of next year?
Well, first of all, I'm really excited about establishing the TBS Championship. I'm really excited about it. The quarterfinals are coming up now, and we had a great match in the buy-in where we got to look at 2 of the quarterfinal matches with Jamie Hayter against Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose. They're going to have a rematch of their great rivalry on Dynamite in the quarterfinals, and we have a lot more to look forward to. Also, Jade and Red Velvet we saw last night on Rampage is going to be a fiery match, and they're definitely both up for that. And also Ruby Soho versus Chris Statlander, which again, it's not like your traditional babyface heel match, but they're 2 great wrestlers, and the crowd's going to be up for both of them. They care about everything both of them do, and it could just be 2 great stars trading shots, and people love that too, as we've seen. So I'm really excited about that tournament, and Ruby Soho has wrestled all over, and I think I mentioned to you guys on the call a little bit, but she brought it up to me again today. This is, of all the tournaments she's been in, the most story and the most thought, and which is really cool because I take a lot of pride in story and thought, and the TBS Championship allows that much more story in the women's division, and we have the depth now where not only do we have a great world title match with Ty Conti against Britt Baker, the #1 contender and the champion, but then also had 12 more great contenders to put a great tournament together, and now I think we're into the top 8, and I'm really excited about that, and I think it's a great move. It shows how much depth we've added since we began, but also it really fits with the move to TBS, so that's going to be really important. I'm very excited about establishing the new world champion, Hangman Page, but he's going to be up to the toughest test possible because I don't want people to think this is just a throwaway situation. The #1 contender, Bryan Danielson, believe me, Hangman's going to have his work cut out for him, and I'm very excited for that. And again, the TNT title, we've got Jay Lethal, what a great free agent coming in. The Open Challenge allows us to have such fresh, exciting title matches, whereas the top 5 means wins and losses really matter. And a wrestler like Hangman Page or Ty Conti or FTR as a tag team have to work their way up and win matches and earn these title shots. And an Open Challenge is great too because it's very exciting. We've seen all these wrestlers come in the Forbidden Door. Eddie Kingston, Ricky Starks, Bobby Fish, and Jay Lethal is a great wrestler, and I'm really excited to see what happens here. And with him walking through the Forbidden Door, we've seen a lot of stars made walking in challenging for the TNT title, and it'd be cool to see a new champion.
Thank you. A few more questions, please.
Tony, are you looking forward to the updating the presentation of AEW as a whole? For example, shooting in 4K, an over-the-top streaming service, something like that?
Well, these are great questions, and some of these things I need input from my media partners, and we work with Warner Media, and I think the more growth we have and the more people and the more demand we have for it, streaming service is something we definitely talked about, and I think there's a lot of options, and one thing that's great for us is we keep growing the library. Every week there's another 2 hours of Dynamite, there's an hour of Rampage, we're always filming Dark Elevation, Road 2, the countdown show for this pay-per-view, and all the pay-per-views have been excellent, and so important, our pay-per-view library. You know, we've done all these great shows, and this is our 3rd installment of Full Gear. We've had 3 All Outs, 3 Double or Nothings, and 2 Revolutions. So in our 11 great pay-per-views, plus the original Fight for the Fallen and Fighter Fest, which aren't in the TV library, and we have other great things in the library that nobody's ever seen, like the House Always Wins show we did in Jacksonville last spring, which was like a lot of fans walked out and they said that was a pay-per-view. You did a pay-per-view, and nobody kept it under wraps. And I told the fans that night, this is like when I was a kid. You're all going to like it's like the ECW arena, and it's not going to be on VHS tape like the tapes I used to trade for. But you would go to the show, and nobody would see it for a long time, and then eventually it would come out on tape, and all the hardcore fans would see it, but only the people that were in the arena would see it for a while. I think that's what it'll be with The House Always Wins. And then also, I put a lot of thought into the Jericho Cruise matches this year. Somebody had a question about this on Twitter. I forgot to answer them, so hopefully this will answer their question. The Jericho matches this year, I put a lot of thought into booking the Jericho Cruise matches, so they are canon. So all the Jericho Cruise matches this year are in the win. It's intentional. They're all in the win-loss records, and those shows we taped, so they're in the tape library also. And there's a lot of great wrestling this year on the Jericho Cruise. That when we get a service someday where people can watch the streaming videos, that'll have a couple cool videos they've never seen before.
is Lance Archer doing?
He's here. Thanks for asking. Yeah, he's good. He is good, and thankfully, he came out of it good. He was a neck injury, not a head injury, so he cleared all the impact testing, concussion, all the stuff, and over the last several weeks, they've determined he twisted his neck, I think. But he's good.
Timetable on return?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to really rush it. We have so many great stars, and Lance is a really important wrestler for us, and he's done so many great things this year, like winning the IWGP US title in the Texas Death Match in his home state over John Moxley. It was a great match, and he also had a great match in New Japan with Tanahashi. I'm a little surprised, speaking of New Japan, you guys haven't really asked me about New Japan yet, but I'm bet one of you might. But now, Lance has done so many great things. No, I don't have an exact date, but I don't see any point rushing it, really, because it's the neck injury, you don't want to rush it. So, but he's been here today and recently with docs checking up on him, and he's doing great. He's in great spirits, and he's had a great 2021.
Are you allowed to tell us any more about the Owen now? The full gear has happened?
I would like to say a little bit more about the Owen. I feel like it would serve me well as a promoter to push it to TV because I want to give it maximum coverage when most people see it. But it may not be the format everybody expects, but I'm really excited for people to learn more about the Owen.
Final question?
If there's anybody, or is there anybody who hasn't gotten any yet? All right, you have not at all. And if there's anybody else, I don't want to make sure I answered everybody's questions, so please.
Okay, so this is kind of backtracking a bit, but earlier you were talking about how Conti had her best match that you've seen. Clearly the fans are behind her as well. She had a great reaction tonight. What can we expect to see from her in the future?
Well, I think she's somebody who would be in line. She's got a great win-loss record. I can tell you, as the person who decides on the top 5, going through the stats and the records every week, she's definitely going to continue being in the top 5. And she could definitely work her way up and get another shot. Look at Britt. There's something Britt said about her that I think is really apt, which is she said she reminds me so much of me a year or two ago, where she's got so much potential and she keeps getting better and better, and the people believe in her more and more, but she never wins the big match. And that was Britt. And honestly, it was Sammy too. And it was Jungle Boy for a long time too. And there's a pattern there. And it was Darby for a long time. And then they started winning the big match. And then, now all of a sudden they've been in a lot of the biggest matches and gotten on bigger and bigger stages. So I think as she keeps getting better and better, the stages will stay big. Tonight was about the biggest stage you can get on, but I think she's going to keep growing into the stage, and I really believe in Ty Conti. She's really important wrestler for the future. Thank you for asking that. Okay, so is there anybody who didn't get to ask anything or any last questions? I don't want to leave anybody with that.
Certainly ask you about New Japan. Okay. Very, very excited about anything you can do with them. But logistically, obviously, it's a challenge. So are you working with Gato? Are you talking with anybody about when is the right time to move somebody and to shuffle around?
Yeah, we are in communication, and I often work through intermediaries. Rocky Romero is a good intermediary between us, but we're communicating. And Gato has been very forthcoming. I'm grateful to Gato for working with us, and also I think we've tried to be a good partner to them. I'm very excited about Ishii coming in to AEW. He's one of my personal favorite wrestlers from outside the company. I thought his match with John Moxley in 2019 was my favorite non-AEW match of the year. That match they had in New Japan was excellent in the G1. And I think that's such a great choice by Orange Cassidy. When I came out at the end of last night, I think I wanted people to know that there might be more to this, and that there could be potential for another chapter in this when things ended the way they did, and it ended up being such a nice moment with Orange bringing in little OC into the ring, which was a nice moment, but also good to foreshadow that Orange Cassidy, being a member of Chaos, has other benefits. He can bring in such a great mystery partner like Ishii, and we're very fortunate that he was in the country and wanted to come wrestle the Butcher and the Blade. And then speaking of the Butcher and the Blade was everywhere with the brass knuckles, knocking people out, getting the heat last night. And the Butcher has been out on tour with Every Time I Die, and they've had one of the most successful albums in the world. And Andy is a very, well-liked person, to be honest with you, in AEW. And the Butcher and the Blade are one of the most successful tag teams we've had. If you look at their win-loss record, they have one of the best win-loss records in the company. So it's a big deal to get the Butcher and the Blade back for us also to wrestle. Ishii in orange. And when I talked to him and asked him if he would come back and wrestle the match, he said he'd be honored. And he's leaving his tour and coming back, and he's going to try and get back without missing any days because he had scheduled this Wednesday off just in case we got something big. And it is one of the Butcher's dreams to wrestle Ishii, so it's a very cool match, and that's another exciting element to it. I really want to make sure everyone gets their money's worth on the travel, so please, any last questions?
I'm a Minneapolis person, so I have to travel. But first off, thanks for coming here.
Thank you.
Second, Minneapolis question. What's been your favorite things about the city and Minnesota in general?
Well, I'll tell you a story about life, a couple things before I came here. The best experience I had and the worst experience I ever had here were right in the hotel I'm staying in here. So in Minneapolis, I've had great experiences in this area. We were in the AFC Championship game and we came really close. The Jaguars in 2017, early 2018 playoffs to go into the Super Bowl in February 2018, and the game was here. And I still have my notes from the Eagles-Patriots Super Bowl. I took very intricate notes.
We're sorry about it being 30 below, by the way.
It was it was great. It was very cold outside, but it was great in the stadium with the roof closed, and I had a lot of memories of being here. But it was really hard because the Jaguars had a very good chance to be in the game and had the call gone our way when Miles Jack wasn't down and ran it back, then we would have been in the game, I think. And so that was really hard going through that. But to sit down, strap down, and take notes through the game, and that was surreal to be here for that. But then later that year, I came back. One of my really good friends is Daniel Adler, the assistant GM of the Minnesota Twins, and he used to work under me. And he's been up for GM jobs in baseball, and he works here in Minneapolis, and he was backstage with friends. And I went to his wedding in August of 2018, and I was right across the street here again, not long later, in the same place. And I was with him and his family, and they are all Harvard-educated, brilliant people. And I was telling them about my idea about just over 3 years ago for AEW, and they thought I was crazy. They thought I was crazy. They looked at me like I was going to flush a bunch of money down the toilet, and they would be the first now to admit it, just like my dad. So it is very gratifying to come back to Minneapolis and have Daniel backstage with the folks from the Twins, and to have him remind me of that 3 years ago was very cool. And then I went to the Mall of America and watched Tiger Woods and Brooke Koepka, and I called Chris Jericho on the phone and talked to him about coming into AEW that same day in August. And so I have a lot of great memories of Minneapolis. And it's also one of the great wrestling cities, and I thought, for Baron Von Raschke, for me as a wrestling fan, and for Chris Jericho as somebody who just loves wrestling deep down so much, and Chris is a huge AWA fan too, it's a great moment. And that was Chris's idea, and it was such a cool idea. So when he brought it up in the spirit of tonight, paying homage to so many great legends, including the late great Eddie Guerrero, just felt right, tonight. So I have a lot of great memories of this city. And I was glad we're here. I'd love to come back. And when we had the opportunity to come to the Target Center, it was a great opportunity for us. And I'm very, very glad the city supported us so great with the show tonight. Anything else?
Is there something that you look for in a city when you're planning tours? And selfishly, when are you coming back to Washington, D.C.?
We're going to come back to Washington, D.C. We're coming back not long. You're gonna find out soon. We're gonna come back. I can't wait to come back to DC. That's where we had the first ever Wednesday Night Dynamite, and I'm excited to come back to DC. And when we're going through, Raphael and I are looking, and we're trying to run a cost-effective tour, but also most importantly, hit great cities where we're gonna service the fans, where we have a great chance to do a really strong house. It's great to be back on the road. A lot of the shows we've done, honestly, since we went back on the road in July, are the shows we had scheduled before the pandemic. I think I said this on the media call, so I apologize for duplicating, but April of 2020 was supposed to be St. Louis, Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, Houston. Those are all shows we've done in the past several weeks, in the last 2 months we've done all those. So we're still making up shows from before the pandemic, so that we had a great calendar, and we're still kind of working through it, and now we're adding dates back in. DC is a great example of a city we're going to go to a second time, and there's a lot of great cities we've never been to that we're really excited to go to. So a lot of factors go into it, but most importantly, I think it's servicing the fans while also running cost-effective and not going, cross-country every few days and running the crew ragged, unnecessarily spending money. So it feels like I've gotten to almost everyone in here, but if there's any Speak now or forever hold your peace, guys. All right, great. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Tony. This is great. Thank you, guys. I hope to see you all again at Revolution. There's a little bit of a gap before Revolution, so hopefully I'll see some of you between now and then for individual stuff. But it always really means a lot when you come to the pay-per-view, and when you stay this late, it's even cooler. So thank you.
Want to tell us where we should be booking our trip for?
It will be a short trip for some of you.